basically, this is about the 80 plus testing and 80 plus testing requirements. I've broken this down into what are the Energy Star requirements, what are the 80 plus certification requirements and testing fees, and the 80 plus certification process and some contact information. So we'll start the Energy Star requirements. Energy Star for storage requires that power supplies must meet the 80 plus silver efficiency requirements. And that means power supplies must be tested to the generalized test protocol for calculating the energy efficiency of internal AC and DC power supplies, revision 6.7,
Don,
which is located at the link. Yes.
Don, quick question, or actually clarification. I should just point out that the Energy Star requirements require that you meet 80 plus equivalent levels. It does not require that you actually use 80 plus testing or an 80 plus report. That's obviously strongly advised because it makes things simpler. But you just have to meet the 80 plus equivalent level, just to clarify.
Right. Yeah. In fact, I think I may have that later on too. That you don't have to register with 80 plus, but if you do register with the 80 plus people, that gives you the ability to also claim that your power supplies meet the 80 plus requirements. But in any case, the test specification that you have to test against is located at that link below, which is at the Plug Load Solutions website. And that's the latest version of the test protocol, which is what's being used to test for energy efficiency for power supplies. And it's got all the details and all the requirements in there for testing. Should you choose to not use 80 plus for their testing, then whoever does your testing needs to follow those test requirements. This is all the different 80. 80 plus has a huge selection of various categories that you can qualify for. They have 115 volt internal power supplies and the 230 volt internal power supplies. Most storage systems use the 230 volt internal power supplies, and the 80 plus silver requirement is for 85% efficiency at 20%, 89% efficiency at 50% load, and 85% efficiency at 100% load, with the addition of a requirement for a power factor of at least 0.9 at 50% load. There are other higher categories as well, but the minimum requirement for Energy Star is that you meet the 80 plus silver requirement. Whether you choose to use 80 plus for testing or whether you choose to test it yourself with an outside lab is up to you. If you do use the 80 plus lab or the pre-testing, this is an idea of what their fees are. There's a one-time fee of $1,000 to get your name located with them. If you're doing a 230 volt model, which is what most of our models are, the per model fee is about $2,500. This is based on their January 2015 price list. I don't think it's changed since then. The units must be configured with the external fan leads for testing in order to remove fan power from the calculation, and they require 2 samples, and the odds are you're not going to get your samples back. But they'll send them back to you if you request it, but I think they charge you for shipping it back. And if you go through the certification process with 80 plus, it's basically fairly straightforward. You go to their site, which is on the Plug Load Solution sites, and fill out their application. You'll receive a confirmation email and shipping address with details for what you need to have in your samples that you submit to the test lab. Then, assuming that everything's going well, you'll have your results back in 3 weeks after the manufacturer's samples have been received. And sometimes it'll be a little quicker than 3 weeks, sometimes a little longer, depending on their backlog and whether or not their test equipment is out for calibration. The testers, you'll then get your test reports and an invoice, and once you've paid the fees, they will also list you on the 80 plus power supplies site on the Plug Load Solutions, which means that somebody can go to that location and discover what the efficiencies and the efficiency characteristics of your power supply If you happen to be, if you've met the minimum silver requirement, but your power supplies happen to actually be gold or platinum, that will not be noted on the Energy Star site. But if you want to brag about it, you can, and you've done the 80 plus certification, you can say, and you can find out how good our supplies are by going to the 80 plus site. And if you need more information about that, about doing the testing with the Plug Load Solutions people, there's the contact information. Both of those, both Jason and Doug will be very happy to talk with you and help you through the process. They've got literally thousands of power supplies that have been tested there that give you over the various and sundry different efficiency categories. But as was already stated, you don't have to do that. You can just have your own independent lab do the testing to the specification when you do your Energy Star testing. It's up to you. Some people choose to do it that way as opposed to having to go through the 80 plus certification process. Any questions? And I guess one thing I probably didn't make perfectly clear on that was, find it here. One of the things, for the 80 plus testing, when you go through the test spec, which is a pretty good test spec they've got there, it will tell you that the 230 volt power supplies that are used, external power or pluggable power supplies that are used in storage, you can remove the fan power by bringing it out to external leads, and they will test it without the fan power, because quite often in storage systems, the power supply is not just a power supply, it's a power cooling unit, and the fans in there are greatly oversized for what a power supply would require, because they are used to cool the entire shelf. So if your power supply happens to be one of those, you would want to be able to be testing it without including the fan power, because that fan power will be a detriment to your efficiency. So if you're using the external lab, you need to make sure they understand how to do that too. Any questions?
This is Wayne, just as a curiosity question. There's a couple companies represented here online from Dell, NetApp, and a few others. I was just wondering if there was any commentary of do you use the 80 plus certification process today, and what the timeline is that if you were to do it, how long does it take typically?
So NetApp has used the 80 plus certification process in the past, and we've had pretty good turnaround time. It usually takes about anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, because our power supplies are custom. In addition to providing the power supply, we also have to provide them a connector for the back end of the power supply so they can hook up their wires for their metering and to apply the loads. If you're using one of these so-called standard type power supplies that you can buy from, the standard server power supplies that you can buy from anybody, they usually have a standardized connector where you don't have to provide them the extra connector. So it's really, but again, with most storage systems, you tend to have a custom power supply, so you will need to provide them a socket to plug the power supply into for the testing as well. And you have to give them pretty good instructions about what all the pinout are, so they know which pins to connect the loads to and the sensors to, and also so you need to give them the leads for the power supply and tell them how to power the leads for the fans and tell them how to power the fan. But once and that's part of the reason why most people, at least we never ask for our power supplies back, because once you've removed the fan power from the power supply, it's no longer production worthy. You can't go back in and reconnect everything and call it a new power supply after that. We have also used an external lab to do it on our most recent testing, and I think that was just was a decision made by the product group that decided to do it. I think they were able to get the testing done for about half the price of going through the 80 plus certification process. The only drawback to that is they don't have they can't claim to be 80 plus on those power supplies until they actually get them tested by the 80 plus APRI group, because 80 plus is a certified trademark of the Plug Load Solutions group. And I do know from past experience that I have got customer inquiries asking us, are we 80 plus qualified? And we have to send them this letter that says, no, but we meet the requirements. And it's just, instead of saying, yes, we are. Anyone else who's done the power supply testing?
Let's see, we have representatives on from like Dell and IBM and HPE on. I don't know if you've had any experience that you'd like to share. It'll take silence to be no.
I can share something, though I'm not from a manufacturer. We had someone we were trying to get certified, a storage company, and the manufacturer of their power supplies claimed on their website that they were equivalent to 80 plus silver, and the manufacturer had tested it themselves, which led to a kind of a squishy area of who is able to actually, if you're not claiming actually 80 plus certification, but equivalency, what labs are, able to actually claim that and be satisfied for Energy Star. So it ended up with a kind of a squishy area there.
In fact, I know when NetApp used the outside lab, we had to be sure that they provided the data to Energy Star for their testing and to say that they had, in fact, tested it correctly.
Yeah, not only that, but our CB asked if the manufacturer was ISO 17025. Well, Plug Load Solutions isn't ISO 17025. It's just its own separate thing.
Right, and your CB shouldn't be asking that, and we've made this pretty clear in the past, and if anyone runs into that, let us know, and we'll have another conversation with them. The intent of not requiring 80-plus certification was to allow the use of in-house test labs. The CBs are supposed to understand this and just assess that the testing was done in a way in accordance with the required test methodology and nothing more. The fact that 80-plus is not 17925 certified itself, which you noted and is very true, just expands on that whole problem. So if there are any CBs that are creating issues with that, please do let us know. We can have a conversation with them. That's not the intent of these requirements.
Right, and so what we've done is just grab the data sheets from the manufacturer, and sometimes you have to request extra information and just, show this is at this load, this is at this percent load, and this is what they got. And then, have somebody yell at them if they insist on ISO or something for that lab.
Yeah, we're actually working through that specific issue right now on the EP server standard, because there's people who think that you have to do the power supply testing in an ISO 17025 lab, which is not what's supposed to happen. So, yeah, that's a constant misconception.
Hi, this is Samuel from MedLab. We are both at CB and a test lab. I believe when the program first started, we were required to have the both internal and external power supply test method on our scope for Energy Star. So we're under the impression that you will have to have that on your scope as an Energy Star lab in order for you to test to those two methods.
That language fair enough early on, but EPA has since released one or more FAQs on the Energy Star website clarifying this specific issue. So they've been pretty clear that the intent is that in-house test labs are perfectly acceptable for power supply testing so long as they follow the generalized testing protocol and CBs validate that the testing was done correctly.
Yeah, I'm just saying that may be where, I mean, you may have some misunderstanding with some CDs
Yeah, that
and
was
their
always
requirements.
not sure it was explicitly stated as such, which is why we had to follow up with the FAQs.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that was the entire intent and the whole reason for kind of making things open from the start. And then, of course, there's the issue that 80 plus testing itself isn't 17025 either. So.
Yeah.
So loaded topic.
Yeah, well, it's good that these clarifications are understood and we're sharing them today. Good.
Yes.
Yep. Now, anyone who wants more information on that, there's information on that on the Energy Star certification website under the FAQ section. There's some specific entries that tackle this issue.
And this is an open-ended question, optional to be answered, and that is from an industry standpoint, even though silver is being, the minimum, I was just wondering, are we seeing anything beyond gold, or are we seeing enough gold in storage with current platforms that are coming out in the last 6 months?
Well, I know storage PSUs are different than servers in some cases, but I can tell you on the server side, almost everything's platinum or better now.
Yeah, and on the storage side, the issue becomes if we use the same technology that a platinum server power supply uses, we tend to be a little bit lower because of the multi-output. So I don't think, gold seems to be a standard that we're easily achieve, but I know from recent testing we've done, we had systems that we were attempting to design to platinum, and they fell just a little short because of the multi-output. They were using the same technology as their servers.
That makes sense. Storage always seems to be trailing servers a little bit.
Yeah, well, part of it's because it takes us so long to develop a power supply, and the other is because we have, in general, at least two outputs, a 5-volt and a 12-volt, and when you add that second output stage, that tends to reduce your efficiency just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I also know that we are still currently shipping some silver power supplies with some of our older systems because our systems last for a long time.
This will obviously
we keep
be
shipping them.
Yeah, this will obviously be an area that we revisit in version 2 development, likely upping the requirements.